In the world of politics, it's all about the battleground states. The countdown to Election Day continues. Today, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are campaigning in those battleground states. New polls show Trump and Harris neck and neck nationally and, well, in battleground states as well. Harris leads on fitness and honesty, whereas Trump is ahead on, let's say, economic issues. Joining us now to discuss all things surrounding that is Mr. Sean Pittman, political advisor and author of Disaffected. Mr. Pittman, truly a pleasure to see you, sir. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Guy, how are you? Thank you for having me today.
I'm feeling good on a Feel Good Thursday, one day away from Friday, as we like to call it. I can tell you who else is probably feeling good, Vice President Kamala Harris. We're going to talk about who she will be joined with, not only tonight, but tomorrow in just a minute. But first, a lot of folks are still talking about that CNN town hall she had last night. It's mixed reaction. Some saying it was a thumbs up, others saying a thumbs down. What say you, sir?
Well, I think in general, it's a thumbs up in the sense that people wanted her to do interviews, people wanted her to take tough questions, and I think she's checked that box. I think the tough part for her is not just the town hall meeting, but just the posture of the race. She's still having to define herself with 12 days left to go in the election, and I think that's tough because at this point, you'd like to be able to for people to just sort of hear the issues that impact them the most, and not so much, you know, the other guy is bad, and and why they're bad. People at this point want to know how you're going to positively impact their lives,
Hmm.
and we have to remember, she came into this race late. Unfortunately for her, Donald Trump, everybody knows him. You either like him or you don't. And she has to still prove herself. And there's just not much of an expectation for the person she's running against. That's a tough situation.
Yeah, during that town hall, to your point, a young woman made mention of that the vice president now stooping down to the level of former President Trump with regard to the rhetoric that is now being used. I guess that's up to America to decide. Speaking of the vice president, we also know that, well, in essence, she has called former President Trump a fascist. As for Trump, he says she called him Hitler, to which in all actuality, that's not the case. Yet again, the back and forth, Mr. Pittman.
Yeah, listen, I don't think she meant it the way he wants you to think she meant it. I think at the end of the day, she's still saying and trying other ways to say it that our democracy is what's at stake. And it's not a guess. Some of the things that come out of the former president's mouth uh, pretty much threatens the way of life that we have known, our electoral process, our freedom, and how we define ourselves as American, and as a country. And the difficult part for her is, this race isn't really about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. It's really about the people and what we think of ourselves. And so I think it's a really tough dynamic for her, but she's got to press on, and she's got to. Here's the thing: as an operative, I don't know that she could do anything better here.
Hmm.
She's doing the job. The problem is she's running against someone who doesn't have to do very much in order to have an impact, and an impact he's having. As you see, these polls are neck and neck,
Yeah.
and they're neck and neck in places that she needs to be doing better.
Well, speaking of doing better, perhaps she will do just that tonight when she brings out former President Barack Obama. But wait, there's more. Bruce Springsteen will join them as well. And then we now know on Friday when she makes an appearance in Houston, well, you just heard Sylvia and I talk about her, Beyonce. Yes, Beyonce will join her. A part of that discussion will surround abortion rights. What do you think is going to happen with that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's still an issue that people are talking about, and a referendum on that issue is connected with this race. And we know the vice president spends a lot of time on talking about reproductive rights. Here's the thing. I think she's very authentic in that. I don't think she's talking about it because it's a good campaign, strategy or not. I think she's talking about it because authentically it is on the menu, right? And the ask the going what happened with Roe v. Wade and allowing the states to make the decision isn't something that's working for Kamala Harris and the people who support Kamala Harris. The threat of it disappearing forever is what she's fighting against. And listen, if you can get Beyonce to stand next to you and speak on those issues, that's great. But at the end of the day, somewhere in here, she's got to be able to make a connection with the issues that she's supporting. She has great issues and great platform, but people are still asking the question 12 days out, well, what is she going to do? Well,
Yeah.
she's been saying it, and her operatives got to figure out how to make that connect and make it connect pretty quickly. If Beyonce can help, that's a great thing. But if Springsteen can help, awesome. But at the end of the day, it's about her and the difficulty of running against Donald Trump.
Yeah. Speaking of Beyonce, I just wonder if she's going to be wearing that new fragrance we just made mention of when she appears with the vice president come Friday. Hey, it all really boils down to the battleground states. You touched on this earlier. We're talking Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. What does each candidate need to do to really separate themselves and win any of those states?
Yeah, well, you got to listen to what people are saying, right? And if you look at history, I mean, Biden was able to pull those three major states that you mentioned together, and for the win. Before that, Trump was able to pull them for the win. We know she's having difficulty in these states, particularly Michigan being one of them. But at the same time, we know that they are that they're winnable because we've seen it. The difficulty in this as well is when you look at favorability, the scary part of Donald Trump at this point is his favorability is higher today than it was the first time he ran. First time he ran, it was somewhere around 36%. And then it was like 45 in 2016, 36%, 45% in 2020, and now it's 50%. And it's shocking that's why I say the referendum is really on us as citizens and people on who we think we are as a country. So he's going to continue to do what he does, and that's predictable. What she has to do is connect in Pennsylvania, connect in Michigan, Wisconsin, even Arizona, right? That has some opportunity to flip if things go right there. But what else are we seeing now, Guy? Is you know voting's down for Democrats.
Yeah.
Democrats they gotta do some things. And look, they traditionally show up on election day. I get that. But there's factors on election day that are really tough for Democrats, and that is the long lines that they have to face from time to time that can send people in a different direction. So she's got to get people out to vote in those places. I think if she gets them to the polls, that she can win.
You made mention of several factors. One of the big factors happens to be the price of groceries. Never before during a presidential election did both presidential candidates have to address groceries, the price of groceries. This is truly interesting, Sean.
Yeah, and it's interesting and it's real, right? And here's the thing. It's starting to change. Our economy goes up and down, and the blame gets put where it gets put on the last person or the last administration. She's a part of the last administration who had to make some tough decisions, right, as it relate to recovering from a pandemic. And when that happened, it was very clear that there are going to be sacrifices and there are going to be difficulties. But as a country, we survived, and we survived under the leadership of Biden and Harris and the decisions that they had to make in order for this country to thrive and recover from a pandemic. And here we are today, now seeing some of the results of that, but it's starting to change. And so they've got to speak to the issue and talk really about how it's going to change. You see that in Kamala's talk about middle class and talk about her tax plan and talking about eliminating federal taxes on tips. I think they're both talking about that important issue, talking about affordable housing and helping local governments, incentivizing them with money to be able to come up with their own creative ideas there. I mean, she has the issues that will impact these day-to-day where the rubber meets the road kind of issues like groceries. I think people just need to hear it, and she's got to do everything she can on that campaign trail to make sure people know that she understands that these issues are important and impacting people's everyday life.
And those issues will come to the front, if you will, front and center in just 12 days when Americans cast their vote for the next president.
Absolutely.
Once again, Mr. Sean Pittman, political advisor and author of Disaffected, joining us right here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Truly appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you for having me today.
All right.